now that we're all here, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Nikki Johnson-Huston. She is a tax attorney for the City of Philadelphia Law Department, a graduate of Temple University School of Law, and she earned her JD M.B.A. in taxation in 4 years.
The reason that I'm standing here before you today is because of my grandmother. So before I get started, I just want to say thank you to my grandmother who passed away, unfortunately, when I was a junior in college, and to all of you, because you make it possible for us to achieve. So thank you. So give a round of applause to yourself. So I think how I ended up with my grandmother, unfortunately, is similar to a lot of people how they end up with their grandmothers, which is my mother, unfortunately, was addicted to drugs and an alcoholic. And by the time I was 9 years old, her problem was so bad that it landed our family on the streets. After several months of this, my mom realized she just couldn't keep us together as a family. And you know what? She made a selfless decision. She made the best decision for me, which was she called my grandmother and said, "Can you take Nikki?" And she was living in Section 8 housing that was for senior citizens. So she actually had to sneak me in. And I remember my mom putting me on the Greyhound bus, and I remember getting to my grandmother about 11 o'clock at night. And my grandmother hugged me to make sure I was okay, and she looked at me and said, "You are fortunate enough to be born in a different America than the America I was born into. You're fortunate enough to be born to the greatest generation of women that will have lived up until this time. What are you going to do with that?" Well, I was 10 years old, and I looked at her, and I was like, I don't know. But I said to her, I want to be a lawyer. And she said, "You can be." And you know why that was important to me? Because my grandmother was born in 1920 in Mississippi, the last of 14 kids. When she wanted to go to college, she was told that it was a waste of money to educate a Negro girl, because we were Negroes back then. And she never forgot that. And she didn't want me to forget it, but she wanted me to know that in spite of the situation that I was born into with my mother, that I could have a better life. That's right. And she talked to me about making good choices about my life, about getting a good education, and she talked to me about being great. Not just being good, but that I could be somebody who was great. And I know that these are the kinds of things that you probably say to your grandkids, and they probably don't even seem like they're paying attention. But you know what? I was paying attention, even when I didn't know it. And so I stayed with my grandmother until I ended up going off to college, and I got a scholarship. I was growing up in California, and I got a scholarship to come to St. Joe's. So that's actually how I ended up in Philadelphia. And the other thing that my grandmother taught me is that I wasn't going to be judged by the success that I had, but by the success that I help others to achieve. She taught me about service, and that is why I'm here today, sharing my story. The other reason that I'm here today is because I was fortunate enough, after I graduated from college, I went on to Temple Law School, where I was the first person in the history of Temple Law School to graduate with a law degree, an M.B.A., and a master's in tax at the same time. I like to say, not bad for a formerly homeless girl who failed college. And what I want to say to all of you, especially the kids in the room, is it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And your life can be whatever it is that you want it to be. And I want to say to you, thank you for taking on the responsibility of caring for children that you don't have to. My grandmother didn't have to. And I know one of the things that she was concerned about is that she couldn't give me a lot of material things. And she wanted me to have two parents. And she couldn't always give me what I wanted, but she gave me what I needed. That's right. And that's what all of you are doing. People ask me why I made it out, and so many people did. I don't know why that is. But I know my grandmother had a big role in that. And I'm her legacy. and your grandchildren are your legacy. But she helped me to believe that there was something more for me. I remember watching Oprah Winfrey with her, and she couldn't call her Oprah, she called her Opie. And she was like, look at Opie. She's like, look at that girl. She could do anything, so can you. And I'm here to say, they can achieve. But don't let them feel sorry for themselves. Talk about the greatness they have inside. Talk about how pretty they are, how smart they are, how nice they are. Because you may be the only person who says that. But you know what? That's all you need, is one person to believe in you.
It's all right, baby. It's okay. It's okay.
And I was fortunate enough to have that person. And all the kids here were fortunate enough to have you. And you are more than enough. So I don't want to hear any more stories about kids who are statistics. I want them to be good statistics. I want them to be the first ones in their family to go to college, the first ones to go to grad school, the first ones to own a house, the first woman mayor of Philadelphia. Those are the stories that I want to hear, and those are the stories that are going on in our community, but we're not embracing them enough. And there's nothing special about me. I'm not particularly gifted. I think I'm smart, but I worked hard, and I believed. And my grandmother helped me to believe when there wasn't a reason to believe. And sometimes that's what you need to get through the hard part. So thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. Thank you so much for what you do. And when you look at them, maybe see a little bit of me and who they could be in the future. Thank you.